Okay, obviously we can't end the book with sheriff harassment, right? No, that's a shitty ending. We ain't doing that. So let's get into this ending here, because this is the final ending. What a shitty ending. I can't go out that way. I was intending on writing an additional chapter entitled Kin Stories. However, that will have to be the next book. Some of my relatives has as wild as stories as I do. I must say this, I could have not made it this far without my parents' support. Great people. You know, when you say someone is a good guy, that indicates so much more than the words imply, especially if you do it in a New York accent. It's a thing, especially among them Sicilians. My parents' close friends are the Galettis, and they do come to mind when you say someone's a good guy, you know. Also, someone could be not so good or even a bad guy. It's really more a judgment of the person's age of their soul, in my opinion. If you're a good guy, you're an old soul, someone who you would feel comfortable around, good energy. So most of them cops above were good guys, with one guy in charge who was maybe not so good, or even a bad guy. In an attempt to clear relations with my wife and children, as well as escape the feelings of confinement and anger over what happened, we headed to the coast. On an earlier beach trip to Moonstone Beach, I picked up a piece of jade and got me some rock hounding fever. I took the trip to write the previous ending of the book, just before the cop takedown. I happened to look up self-publishing, and it was expensive with the company I first used. I was depressed to think about raising that much money, so I figured why not go jade hunting with the boys. Wendy got a great idea to get jade massage stones, and I wanted to go for a jade at Moonstone. I figured if we got enough of it, I could pay for the publication. The trip was great. Me and the boys enjoyed looking for the stones at Moonstone Beach and got some samples of low-quality nephrite, but not worth any money. It was really connected to the ocean. I was walking on the shoreline in my hiking boots, anticipating waves as they come in, always on the edge, never getting wet. Wet almost never. I said to myself I wanted to find jade, and you know that is all I found that day. Almost all was red, still not any value, just jade rocks, not the crystal. Jadeite is the crystallization of the jade stone after being washed for thousands of years by the ocean, I figure. While staying at Moonstone Beach, Wendy mentioned she saw an online spot a bit further north by Big Sur called Jade Cove. That sounded great, and I was in no mood to end our trip, and we had to head back home, especially without a jade haul, so we headed north. It was at the time reacting to emotions and still processing what happened with the sheriff. In no way did that the angels that were working to reinvent my... In no way did I know that the angels were working to reinvent my life. I drove from Moonstone Beach and Jade Cove to the city to Gorda. And yes, the city of the fat girl is really picturesque. On the way, you will see elephant seals, which is definitely worth a stop. We stopped twice, and I even went down there by one of them in a different area to look for jade. No luck on the jade, but them elephant seals are big, and it was cool having one swim up to Wendy and I. By the elephant seal is a famous Jeep rock. I'll just show it to you real quick. This is if you can zoom in enough. You see the Jeep rock out there off the coast? It's the shape of a Jeep. Just like this jelly opal I carved. Pretty cool little Jeep. Lots of fun. Oh, since we're talking about it, this is a piece of jadeite. That's what it looks like when you get it. I use this as a pocket knife. Cool, huh? On the way to Gorda, you pass Hearst Castle, and then up the coast and up the bluffs. The overlook of the ocean from the bluffs in Gorda is breathtaking, the kind of view you could just sit and stare at. The ocean further north is colder, cleaner, and filled with more life. We checked in and were a little hesitant. However, the hotel was fabulous and just a couple miles from Jade Cove. I had said while further south, all we need is a chest-sized jade crystal be laying on the beach. Then I could publish my book. So off we went to Jade Cove with the boys to get some of that crystal. The trip to the spot was filled with excitement. We had stopped by the bluffs the afternoon before to scout out the way down. I could recall being pretty intense about getting down in time to do a real hunt for some of that crystal. I wanted to go down to the direct way as it was a smaller hike. After the boys did some exploring while I medicated in the car. It's funny, in college we call it a party. Now smoke is medication. I waited for what in my mind was a long time, probably 15 minutes. I couldn't take it, so I went and got them. I demanded we head for the direct route. We head down it with Wendy and the boys in sandals. We got to the bluffs, and they were all following me real far. I am glad now that they didn't go down the rope. I don't think we would have gotten out very easy. I was upset, and we left. We later went back to the spot and noticed that there was a RIP, rest in peace sign where someone fell off, where I am assuming where they fell off. On the way back to the hotel, I noticed a scenic turnout with a road headed down to the water. I said, there it is. That's the spot. Wendy drove past, so I demanded she turn around. I was being a real ass, and it's not easy to be around me. However, this time it worked out. When we got back there, it was an asphalt road down to the water. We drove on down and were stoked to get a parking spot right off the shore and a freshwater creek that was fed from the spring. Wendy commented that her grandmother, Darlene Smith, used to live in the area and told her the best jade spots was where fresh water meets the ocean. She painted the picture where she lived in the area and happens to be very similar to the specific spot we were in. Show you that. And it's right here. Pretty picture, right? With the water coming down. Really looks like that there. It's really cool. We were off. Wendy and the boys in sandals and me in hiking boots headed for that water. In the hindsight, the sandals were better equipped for that beach. It was a really cool surfer spot. Wendy and the boys were checking rocks by the spring, and I was checking by the shoreline. The shore was rocky, but you see there was nice, untouched, steady sandy beach just past the jetty of boulders. It was intently scrambling around boulders, and there was a few nice ones. They weren't gem quality of crystal. After some time, I was moving on and headed onto the beach. It was a pristine beach, and I stayed there for a time just looking at the ocean, playing on the shoreline, dodging waves in my boots. I headed back and called the kids over to check out the cool beach. I walked about 3/4 of the way down the beach, and I noticed a shiny spot on the white boulder and a black shiny boulder. The boys were hanging out by Wendy, who was now on the beach, and I pushed on just a bit to the other side of these boulders. There on the beach was a dead seal. It was an adult and was completely stripped of all meat except one flipper. It was really cool and shockingly wild. I yelled at the boys. They came over and Aiden made it to the spot to see. As we were checking it out, the tide was coming in. I walked a bit further and saw another fresh kill. This one looked like a mermaid body from the show. Really weird, no flesh at all. I called Ayla to check this one out. When the boys let me know Wendy was calling for us, she was real concerned over the rising tide. I wasn't too happy about rushing off that beach because I wanted to check the sparkle I saw in the white boulder. The tide was rising, not nearly as fast as Wendy had perceived, but we scrambled over the rocks safely to the freshwater spring at the side of the car. We were talking about the wildlife, obviously, over the cove. From then on out, it was called Great White Beach, or Shark Beach for short. Wendy was now again looking in the fresh water at some stones, and I was getting pretty frustrated. I wanted to leave, being irritated that we were back at the creek when I was enjoying the wild Great White Beach. I said, let's go there. There's nothing here. It's in an unhappy, shitty tone. She replied, look at this. I was thinking, yeah, right, look at what? As I approached her, she was digging out a head-sized rock from the creek. She had to commit to getting pretty wet to get it. As I looked at it from a distance, it looked like moss on a rock. I even said, that's pretty green moss. She replied, come over here and check this out. and a super excited toad, but not a loud one to bring attention. I hurried over and could see that the green moss was jade crystal. Wendy was holding a large head-sized crystal. It was super exciting instantly, better than any medication. We hustled back to the car and stashed the 14.5-pound crystal skull. I'll show it to you in a minute. At the car, I couldn't get it out of my head that there was a shiny spot on the boulder. I said, I need to get back to the Shark Beach real quick before the tide. Wendy wanted to go with me. I think they're more protection. The kids stayed in the car. We headed over the boulders and got both onto Shark Beach. The tide was higher with a bit of concern. You don't want to be stuck. The tide was higher with a bit of concern. You don't want to be stuck on Great White Beach after dark with high tide, or you become a pile of bones. As we walked on the beach, I pointed out a large rock, chest size, just laying to the sand below the cliffs. I was disappointed there. It was deposited there the night before during high tide. I had asked Aiden to check it out when we were there first. Instead, he drew a giant 15-foot cock or penis in the sand, complete with balls. As we walked by, we both chuckled. We got to the boulder spot and decided to head back the other way. We weren't quite sure that boulder was, and the tide was coming in. On the way back, we headed by the giant green penis, and again, I noticed the chest-side boulder oddly sitting by itself in the sand. It was white like the other one, so I figured it was nothing. I said to Wendy, who was closer, "Can you check that one out?" She yelled back, "You got to get over here." As I approached, I could see it shining through the thin layer of white salt. The solid crystal chest piece I asked for, just right there laying in the sand. I figured the mermaid got eaten deposited that for us. It is one of the most magical spots I've ever been to. I hugged the chest piece as it was just that, and I am pretty wide, so in this instance, it's bragging. On the way back, I mentioned to Wendy that the one chest piece was right behind the penis. Actually, if it would have been seen from above, it would have looked like a penis and an ass. That's funny because I was acting like a bit of an ass earlier. We headed back down to the beach over the boulders. I did have to set it down a couple of times, hopping on the boulders with the tide coming and carrying the 55-pound piece of solid crystal is not easy. Also bragging, haha. We loaded up at the boulder and were happily cautious. This was a new spot, and I figured the ocean tide sucked seals and surfers or mermaids to the depths, also churned the stone to an amazing place, Great White Beach. I'll just show you a picture of them so I'm not hauling boulders up to this canyon and such. But there's the chest piece. There's the crystal skull. Pretty cool. When at night back at the place, the crystal chest piece stayed in the car. I didn't want to be seen hauling it around. It's legal and all that. I just didn't want to blow the secret we just found. We did get to check out the skull, which was something to share that night. I said that night, now that I have the chest piece, I needed me a larger boulder. The next day, we needed to go back to the beach where the kids could swim. Now that we had great finds, both Wendy and I were curious about the spot where you must rappel to get to the water. We headed out early just to get to the two of us to the Jade spot. We started at the spot. You have to hike a bit to get to the cliffs. We hiked to the cliffs and said, hell no. It is a bit too much, not knowing how it would be, ropes from the top. The direct route was only rappelling halfway down, so we headed back up to explore. As we reached the cliffs, we had noticed the RIP sign for someone who I assume fell. Wendy pointed out and mentioned the kids in sandals. I sure was wrong the day before. It was a fun hike for me, but no way the kids could handle it. Their legs just aren't big enough to climb up certain spots. Once we were down at the beach, we started exploring. We did pick up some cool massage stones, and we found a couple small pieces of jade, but not crystal like the day before. We headed out and back to the kids. We picked them up, and they were ready to go swimming at the beach. We left and went to Sand Dollar Beach. It's a real nice beach. The water is clear, a bit cold, but nothing like the river. I was happy to watch the boys play in the waves, as the beach is shallow water and not filled with great whites. They had a great time, and we left. I had to stop again at Great White Beach now that I had the chest piece. I was pondering that white boulder. Could that be salt on one too? I got Wendy to stop again at the special spot. Everyone was tired, and Wendy in her wisdom, sold the creek as good place to wash the sand off. We arrived and got another good parking spot. There were more people this time. Wendy and the two younger boys, Corbin and Bright, were hanging out at the creek. Me and Aiden ventured around a great white beach. This time we had navigated a better path through the boulders. I followed the surfers on the other side. I was supposed to see the two. I expected to see the two people surfing. They were local, but they stay out of. They were local, but they stay out of the suck zone. Me and Aiden were watching them surf, laughing, asking each other if they were if we would see shark fins. We headed on, reaching the white boulder. Overnight, it has split in two. The high tide is so strong in the area that it split the boulder in two pieces. I approached, I looked at the boulder, and could see that the part that was broken off of the boulder in itself was also solid crystal. The crystal back half of this large boulder split, and there it was, disguised with white salt, my large crystal boulder. I pulled it toward me. It was so heavy that it was not easy to even drag. Right then, I started to move it. Aiden finds himself a black jade boulder. So we both are now hauling. There was no way that this thing was going to make it out of there. Wasn't going to make it out of there. This was my big piece I asked for. If it took all afternoon, I was getting it out. For a good 3 hours, Aiden and I lifted and quick step, drug, and flipped our boulders down the beach. The first encounter while hauling was another jade hunter. As he approached, I told Aiden, just sit on your rock and chill. I was sitting on my boulder and he was standing in front of his. The guy said, you find anything? Aiden was quick to respond, no, I haven't found anything. It was funny because Aiden postured and the guy cowered and moved on. He did look a few times catching us moving the big rocks. We stopped to pant every so often and watch the one surfer. He then left and we were finally alone on Great White Beach. It was nice to have a break from the attention. That lasted about 5 minutes. There was a surfer who came by and he was being filmed by one of his friends. They set him in front of us, so I had to drag the boulder by him. I had told Aiden to just act natural. We kept sitting on the boulders as we moved them down the beach. Every time sitting and watching this guy's friend surf the Great White Shores. We could tell he had never been to the beach because he was allowing the current to pull him towards the kill zone. As we approached his friend who was filming but now taking a breath, I said, hey, you could tell your friend we were enjoying watching him surf because we were waiting to see if he got eaten. A great white ate 2 seals over there yesterday. The bodies are still there. The filmer was shocked and headed towards his friend. Just about the time his buddy headed in, lucky for him, I was just stoked that they were focused on imminent death and not me moving boulders. Let me show you the pictures of me and the boys out there on Great White. That's me and the 2 boys. Oh, no, that's not me. That's my eldest Aiden there and the 2 boys. And then that's Aiden, and that's my boulder, and that's Aiden's. Just as the film guy was leaving, here comes this lady over the boulders that we were now approaching. She said, are you Kevin? Your wife Wendy is worried about you and can't find her phone to call. I said, that's so nice of you to come tell me. Please tell Wendy that I'm getting her that boulder she wanted for her front lawn. I then said again, bless you for telling me. I was really thinking, come on, really? Then a few flips and drags later, we were at the boulder balancing act. I squatted down and lifted with everything I had. It was real difficult to even lift, and hopping atop boulders carrying one as well was really difficult. I had to plan about 3 steps or boulder hop and then have a spot to see my boulder. This took another painful 45 minutes, I guess. I set my crystal boulder down pretty hard, the 3rd leg of the rock hop, and it cracked off a chunk. It happened to be the chunk I was dragging it by. I was actually relieved. It was now more manageable and I was able to get more steps before a rest. As I ran towards the beach, Wendy later told me that the surfers were pointing, laughing, saying, look, it's one of those strongman dudes. I didn't feel like that. More like a blundering idiot with a boulder I was trying to disguise. By the time I reached the creek where Wendy found her crystal skull, I was exhausted. I rested the boulder for Wendy to see. I rested the boulder for Wendy to see, and then she asked for help getting the rental car's trunk open and keep people away. I was again doing the big boulder quick step to the truck and had to set it down one last time. As I did, the surfer lady headed straight for me. She was eyeing the boulder and went up to it, rubbed it, and said, "Oh, it's serpentine." She was fooled by the white salt on the one side. Wendy said, "It's just for my yard." I got it in the trunk and was happy to be done with the best workout ever. Ada was quick to follow with his My Crystal Boulders broker chunk is 14. My Crystal Boulders broke chunk is 14 pounds, and the boulder itself is 109 pounds. Supposedly, Aiden's boulder was 99 pounds. Strong kid. His was round and harder to haul. So proud. We headed back to the hotel with 225 pounds of crystal in the trunk of 2 different types. That rental was about filled to its max. That night we discussed leaving the next day, and both me and Wendy wanted to head back. Wendy wanted to head back to the Jade spot, rappelling down the cliffs, and I wanted a last book at Great White Beach. At the time, we had no idea how much any of the stuff were, so I figured best to make sure we were good. Wendy wanted to market sacred, blessed, hand-carved jade massage stones. So off we went real early to make sure we had time to climb and look. I had a premonition that Wendy might fall. I kept eyeing on her entire way down the cliffs. I mentioned her to watch out several times and was feeling relieved as we reached the bottom. I said to her, "That's your last step. Watch out. You got it." Just then, I was watching her take her last step. I lost my footing above her on the hill and went down. I didn't roll, but just hit pretty good. She was laughing and I was too. We headed down to the big rocks the other side of the cove. I had better massage stones we were loading in our backpacks with perfect spherical balls created by the ocean. The power of the water is intense up there. We felt so connected. It was really getting into collecting good ones for Wendy. Feeling connected to spirit, she started to do a ritual prayer toward the incoming waves. Right then again, while looking up at her, I experienced firsthand how slippery boulders could be in the morning dew. I had both feet in the air and flat backed on the same massive boulder I slipped down. I made a loud crack. I instantly believed Wendy's prayer. I was, again, funny after I stopped cursing. It hurt, though. Ended up breaking my big toe. We collected many massage stones, and then we noticed once again fresh water in the corner of the cove. It was running out of these rocks and dripping on a boulder. One of the boulders was a vein of crystal jade. It was really not possible to harvest, so we searched around and we found this really cool book-sized crystal piece. Let me show you a couple pictures. So the boulder ended up being more than jade. It did have serpentine too. This is jadeite, that's jadeite. This is serpentine in the boulder. Beautiful green crystal, it's really neat. I also searched around and got a few good pieces. There was another couple that came down. They were searching around, and I walked around the corner and saw a cool piece for my mom. With both these locals looking at me, I squatted down. A heavy backpack with jade massage skills pulled me over. I was now on my ass, one leg out and leg tucked, with both of them staring at me. They didn't laugh at me directly, but I'm sure it was real funny to see. I had to roll over on my belly to get up with the pack. That was fall number 3, and with that now broken toe, I was ready to go. We headed out, and it was a real workout getting both backpacks out filled with stones. Here's a picture of that hike, because that was fun. The cliffs there. That's that crazy book-sized piece, jadeite. That was really special. We were now headed out, and I had to visit Great White Beach again, mostly to show Wendy we had where the boulder was. We headed out, and I got to the boulder. It was really interesting to see that was cracked off by the ocean during the high tide was most of the crystal. There were a couple more pieces that I snagged and then noticed another big with a 40-pound piece, 40 plus. Plindy was excited to find another jade haul right there. She got a tricolor piece she showed me and I also showed her. We both agreed at the same time to leave the rest. The ocean has given enough. I then stacked some small shards of bright green crystal on top of the boulder, pointing to the remaining find of 40 plus I left. Maybe someone would see them before the powerful tides. We left the coast feeling fully connected to the ocean. I would like to live there, but it's real expensive. So then the question was, what is this stuff worth? We headed to LA, and after 2 places denied to even look at it because it was raw and uncut, we finally came to a guy that confirmed it was jade, or at least some of it. Wendy pulled out her big 3-color piece to show him, and he said, "Oh, you have very dirty jade." We all laughed right out of the ocean. He actually offered me $200 to $300 for my small sample. I was super excited and let him my phone number and then let him know I have a 109-pound boulder. He didn't speak but bowed his head and stepped backwards. We were really happy to have hopes that this can help us live with less stress. I have a diamond jeweler, Capri, that was polishing and checking for me. Good guy, Gary, I hope. We'll see. We anyways go to the alley at the end of Vince. It's a great place with the shawarma plate. We were sitting under the Herald Angel statue with the horn of the downtown LA, and I couldn't help but laugh. I was playing Christmas music for gem hunting, so hark the Angel Arrow statue at the funny and odd to see in the alley above while eating. I must have sounded like a madman laughing in downtown LA. It was really fitting. I was really fitting in. I really enjoyed hunting at jade. It doesn't matter what it's worth. It's some of the most fun I've had. And even with all 3 falls and broken toe, hell, that makes it more interesting anyways. On the way back from the beach, I can recall the feeling of leaving the water and heading to the wind. I told Wendy that we're heading to the desert now, the home of the wind. This was so true for 2 reasons. We're heading to the desert in a few days for my nephew Derek's off-road motorcycle race, and it was really windy. I said to Wendy, I need me a windstone now. I need a basketball-sized opal or a fist-sized one. I was thinking like a casino when... thinking like in a casino, when you're hot, why not press your luck? And it's fun. And the opal mine in Red Rock Canyon is near the race. So there you go. Before I move on to the opal, just this was the one that you want to give me a couple $100 for. So that's kind of cool. It's like a crystal. It's really neat. And I showed you my knives. Yeah. This is off my big boulder, this piece here that I cut. This is off the big boulder too. It's kind of neat. It's just solid green crystal, man. Pretty sweet. Excuse me. All right, moving on to something else. This is fun. We got to Ridgecrest and it was a welcome sight. The wind was whipping and we were headed for Opal. The first day we tried to reincarnate the beach and it was so different. As different as the ocean is to the desert, from the cool water to the dry wind. We rounded Opal Peak and decided to stop just before the mine and noticed many cool finds. Me and the boys found what looked to be 2 large chunks of garnet. Wendy also found herself, I believe to be titanium garnet, was a jet black. It happened to be jelly opal, and I have a ton of it. And that's fun. And Wendy ended up getting these things called Apache tears, which are very rare. It was nearing the end of the day, and a couple of hours and the wind was enough. I wandered up this little valley and noticed a huge basketball piece of opal I call tree opal. Fossilized trees over 12 million years old have turned to opal or opalized wood. I got my basketball, not worth a ton to jewelers, but real special to me, and a testament to the power of the wind. In fact, after loading the basketball, I lost hold of the Jeep door, and the wind blew it out of my hand, and it slammed so hard against the Jeep, it bent the door. Powerful as the wind. I wasn't too upset, though. It was fun. We went to Derek's race the next day, and it was great. The kid did good, the kid is real good or crazy. They do up to 100 miles per hour going across the desert. No roads to follow, just trails and bushes, rocks, hills, and all, while racing each other. We got to the race on time because we pre-ran how to get there the night before. It was between Ridgecrest and Trona. The track was 2 laps, each about 40 miles. The second lap is different than the first, with the idea that you aren't supposed to know where you're going. There is no pre-running the course. It is now my favorite new sporting event to go to. When they start, like 20 or 30 of them all haul ass towards 2 flags, maybe 2 miles away. They all have to go through the flags. After they left, it looked like Star Wars pod racers. You see the dust trails over 40 miles away as they race 100 miles across the desert sand. It's an absolute trip. After we watched the stages start for different classes, we got a spot at the end of the pit so Derek could see us exit. And we could see him get on it and climb over the hill. It didn't take long for the first rider to hit the pits, as they are staged by class. It was fun to watch and go about when it started to get a bit boring but then came Derek. It was great. We were cheering really loud for an off-road race, and he air humped us as he went by. As they exit the pits, there's a short 90-degree turn, and they go straight up the mountain, complete with a rock crawl at the top. After the excitement, we headed to the finish line to watch him finish. While we were there, I noticed a weird-looking green glass or gem on the ground. I pointed out to Aiden, and he grabbed what was a cool find for the trip. It was a piece of green obsidian, glass created from lightning or a nuclear test that they did real close nearby years back. Either way, green obsidian is real cool and maybe radioactive. The finish was great. We were standing at the corner before the finish cheering for wheelies. One guy tried to do one and almost crashed in the sand. I was glad Derek didn't do that, but he did do a bit of a jig to finish. It was an awesome experience for both him and us as a family. He finished third and got to go to the podium. That puts him up real high in points. If you're ever in need of a good family outing, go check out Derek Rogers at the AWA Harehound Off-Road Race. I gotta show you a picture of my nephew there. There he is, Mr. Bike Racer. Wendy and I went back to the opal mine once by ourselves and once with the kids before we left town. I did get me a palm-sized crystal something out of the opal mine. We have to process it a bit to find out what it is. A few other nice-sized ones as well. Cool stones of air. Wendy found herself a mountain lion whisker while we were in the obscure canyon. It was super crazy wind vortex spot. We also found 2 large pieces of what I think is garnet. On the sides of the trip of the coastal camp, we were walking around hunting for gems when Wendy said there's a mountain lion nearby. It smelled like cat piss, old rotten meat, and musk. That was definitely a mountain lion. Without the vortex, I think we may have had an encounter with a cat. The vortex of wind let us know that while we were hunting gems, he was hunting us. Wendy has the whisker, and I think it may be the coolest find of all. I am now finishing this book finally for good at my parents' house in anticipation of running to Satan Mountain and opening my gym shop and bookstore with pour over coffee. Come by and say hi. Thanks for reading and bless you. I dedicate this book to my wife, my boys Logan, Aiden, Corbin, Brighton. You're the best. Let me show you some pictures and take you through a little bit more of what I found out. My big boulder had jadeite on it. Most of it is serpentine. The lady happened to be right. I love serpentine. It is so freaking cool. Jadeite I can't cut, and it's so hard I can't mess with it. The serpentine's a softer stone, and on my tile saw that I have for cutting my tiles for my shower and the kitchen here and everything, I just get up on that and freehand this stuff, and I got pretty good at it. I make these necklaces. I paid for Christmas this year with these things, and they're serpentine necklaces. They're beautiful. They shine. In the sunlight, they're green, and they're see-through, some of them. They're real neat. The opal, we went crazy on the opal, man. Like this one here, I chiseled this out of a lava flow, and that's water opal right there, or Gyrosol opal, and then there's some white and red common opal with it, which is just a fun one. I showed you the Jeep. I have No joke. I have like 300 pounds now of jelly opal here. I got my 2 giant boulders of the green stuff, which is jadeite, but mostly serpentine. And I've made me 150 necklaces. Oh no, I'm exaggerating. I will have me 150 necklaces soon. I have about 100 right now. Cutting for the shop. I open my shop in 2 days. You want to come check me out? I'm up here in Kernville. We got the hotel. We got the gym shop. My boulder's on sale for, that was the boulder I showed you right here. Got that sucker on sale for a mere $130,000 online. Somebody maybe wants to buy that sucker. It's awesome because you can cut it and make things out of it. It's really neat. A lot of fun. Women love the necklaces. Men do too. I got a lot of guys wearing them. And I made this sharp tooth here. Like I said, in the sun, you see right into it. It's real cool. All right. Thank you guys so much. That was a lot of fun. I'm glad to be done reading. And I hope maybe some of you people can get something out of that. Peace to you.